Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Can't hear you, Doug. Doug, we can't hear you. Are you muted? You doesn't say you're muted.
It does say he's muted.
Yeah, it does say he's muted now, but
Now he's back.
you're muted. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Great.
All right, we're good now. So we have everybody has the treasurer's report. I'll go through it. If you have any questions, myself or Mary can jump in with the answers. So as of last month, we were waiting. The state payment was very late, and it did come in very, very end of the month. So the checks went out once that came in. So our ending account balance is the 501,453.13. Mary and I met with Alice and discussed the fiscal year 2022 cash flow, the final. There was discrepancies. We were going back and forth. Mary put extra work in, thought we had figured it out. And it turns out the state had made a mistake. They were missing some September homestead payments that they didn't calculate, which was why our calculations were off. So I was just speaking to Alice today when I went to sign checks. So she's going to hold tight until she gets word from the state that they've corrected things on their end. And then Mary and I will finish up the fiscal year 2022 cash flow.
May I ask a question? How does that affect us? The homestead tax payments that they didn't record, how does that affect your the end cash flow? Because it doesn't show some money that we actually received in tax payments? Is that what it is?
Correct. So the village will be quite, well, almost for certain writing a check to the graded school district.
Okay.
The amount is yet to be certain. According to what we had calculated previously, it's $130,000, which is higher than it usually is at this point in time. But that is due to an error that I had on the preliminary reconciliation spreadsheet. Now, it may not be that because I don't know until we get that final, but my guess is, near as I can tell, it was an error. So my guess is that it will be a significant amount that will be remitted to the graded school district. The exact amount, I don't know. I also don't get those emails from the state directly. I used to, but somehow now I don't. But Alice sent it. And it was also forwarded to me from the town of Bennington. So we are looking for that final, should have that anytime now.
Okay. And so if you take into account that adjustment, what does the cash flow projection show? We have enough money to meet obligations through the end of the year? That's what I'm concerned about. So
as are we, and I think it may be tight because I don't know if there is yet another village tuition to be remitted.
no, May is the last one. If that's included.
Oh, then
in
we
the
should be good.
calculation.
Then we should
Yeah.
be good, because my guess is it will be in the vicinity of $100,000
Okay,
to be forwarded over
okay,
from the village
Yeah.
to the graded school district. The
Right.
preliminary showed that that there was money due back to the village from both the graded school district and MAU. But that just didn't seem right. So we now have, which I'll show Doug how I did it this time, but I actually did the reconciliation in two different ways. I did both a top down and a bottom up to double check numbers. And we can, Doug and I can review that so we can do the same thing for the preliminary reconciliation, which will be in November.
okay. Okay, so that's good. And let's hope that money shows up as you think. From,
I'm really fairly certain it is.
yeah, okay. At any rate, it would be, well, never mind. So are there any questions by the rest of the board for Mary or Doug on the treasurer's report? Seeing none. I don't actually mean to be off video here, but there we are. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes a significant warrant that has, I believe, the last payments to the supervisory union, as well as the last payments to all of these schools, the independent schools that we tuition students to, and payments to Lori for minutes, and I don't remember if there's other miscellany in it. So, and then the minutes from last month's meeting are included. So I would entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as ordered.
So moved.
A
second.
Thank you. Mary,
Could you, because I don't get all the information anymore, can you just tell me what the total of the warrant is?
I can't see it at the moment. But-
Doug, do you have it? Is
Yeah.
it mailed
I can
to
read it
you?
off.
Yes.
Yep, I
thank
can read
you.
it off.
Yeah, thank you.
It's $436,417.77.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. All right. So any other questions about minutes or the warrants? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. So we move on to, are there policies on this? I don't have the agenda in front of me, and I didn't notice any, I think, but when I looked at it.
We did not have a meeting this month.
Okay. So no policies. So we move on to superintendent's report. Who's presenting that, actually?
Laura's going to do one part and then I have something
Okay.
to say.
Okay, thanks.
And my camera's off because I'm in the car.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. I'm back again. So the last month when I was with you, I did a presentation that was requested linked to ESSER funding and specific to what is that, how does that impact early education? And so I have a response for that, but I'm also going to give you some updates about our other grants. We are sharing with all of our boards information about other grants that are available to the school district, and also how there are equitable and proportional shares available to independent and private schools as well. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this is going to work better than the link that I was having trouble with earlier. There we go. So as a reminder, we again have a large grant team that comes together to work together to implement the grants that we receive. And again, myself as the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Kate Abbott, our Interim Director of Student Support Services, Melissa Senecal, our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, Lisa Poplawski, our Administrative Assistant to the Assistant Superintendent in Curriculum, Abby Ferrara, she's the Administrative Assistant for Recovery, Sheila Prince, Administrative Assistant to Student Support Services, Renee Gordon, Director of Finance and Operations, and Mary Bueck, Accounting Manager. And again, we meet weekly at 11:30 to monitor our grants. And again, it is grant season. And tonight I'm going to share with you the Consolidated Federal Grant Program, which is commonly referred to as TITLE. And so TITLE, our district receives 3 pockets of money through TITLE. We receive Title I money, which is federally funded. It's a federally funded program to meet the needs of educationally at-risk students beyond their classroom. It's the and more. Title II funds can be used to supplement, and it's all about improving the quality of our teachers and our leaders and other school staff. And the purpose of Title IV is that funny pocket of money, which is all bundled together, and it's all about improving students' academic achievement, looking at a well-rounded education, safe and healthy schools, and to promote the effective use of technology. And so the SVSU receives, this current year's, this fiscal year will end on June 30th. And you can see the current year awards that we received that also in this amount includes the rollover. And some examples of how the SVSU uses these resources. Title I is where most of our interventionists come from. We also access tutoring services, and we appreciate our partnership with the Bennington Tutorial Center. This is a requirement of Title I is parent engagement activities, similar to literacy and math nights. And homelessness falls under Title I. We have a homelessness requirement to make sure that students that are experiencing homelessness have access to resources to be successful in school. And then early education also falls under Title I. Title II for our district, we have literacy and math coaches. And then we provide professional learning and how to look at data to make good instructional next steps. We have also used Title II money to support our teacher supervision and evaluation model to provide professional learning and to bring people together to prepare and monitor our system. And so for Title IV, we've been able to use the money to support an equity coordinator, building level director of equity and school climate that's related to an Arlington role. We have a district social, emotional, and behavior coach who's been super busy this year. And then we have art and music personalized activities and trauma-related activities that we fund out of Title IV. So you can also see that at this point in the year, there is a little bit of money. It's still in each pocket. We do typically roll over. We always try to spend the money, but we do roll over, and we're always trying to anticipate funding to make to support our staff. So how does this work? Again, this grant runs from July 1 to June 30th. And Right now, in this moment, we are preparing next year's grant. We receive an initial district allotment. And then the first thing we do is the state provides us with a list of private and independent schools in our attendance zone, and we provide equitable shares. So that means that we reach out to all of the independent and private schools that the state has identified in our region, and we say, hey, would you like to collaborate? Would you like to have some access to this funding? And then we set up meetings, which we've just held in the last couple of weeks. And so basically the money follows the student for the different titles. We also collect feedback on the SBSU website. So there is a tab under About Us where it says title, and you can click and community members can share. I met with a community organization that reached out to me and say, hey, we saw that you have access to Title IV money. We'd really like to come meet with you and learn more about that. And we have some ideas for you. We also meet with the Bennington Workforce and Education Committee. And then we collect feedback from our families. Every year we meet with every school and have a parent night where we collect ideas. And then what we do is we create grant investments. They have to be linked to school goals. And then once we have our school goals, and once we have our ideas for grants, they go into different buckets. In our district, all of our public schools are considered school-wide schools, which means that we demonstrate need based on income survey that we do. And so the investments that we're writing for the schools, the 10 schools in the SU are available to all students. And then a portion of, again, that title funding, once we identify all the schools, independent and private schools that would like to collaborate with us, we can figure out their allocation, and then I write grant investments on their behalf that they have from June 30th to July 1 to expend. And a portion of the funding does help to support the administration of the grant. Once we hit submit on the grant and it ends up at the Agency of Education, then each investment, and I think Renee and I figured out that last year we had about 100 investments. Each investment is looked at through a programming side at the Agency of Education. And once they give it approval, then it moves over to the finance side and they review it through that lens. And then eventually we get word that our grant has been approved and we can start spending against the investments. I think one of the questions we get a lot is the grant just a big pocket of money that arrives? And again, it's not, it's money that we have to get permission to use, and each investment is part of that permission. The second grant that I'm just going to highlight for you tonight, which is the other big grant that we receive other than ESSER, is the Ideab grants, and where Melissa Senecal, the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, myself and Renee Gordon helped to take care of the title grant. Dr. Kate Abbott works closely with Renee Gordon to take care of the Ideab grant. So this grant supports the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and it includes IDEA Basic and IDEA Pre-K. The purpose of this funding is to assist local education agencies in providing special education and related services to eligible children with disabilities. A portion is also set aside to support IEP eligible learners whose parents have enrolled them in a private or non-public school. So in this grant, it's called proportionate share allowance. So in the title grant, it's called equitable shares. So Dr. Abbott and I work together to meet with the independent and private schools that would like to access this funding. And it works in the same way as title. We reach out to see how many schools would like to collaborate with us, and that determines the allocation. So most of IDEAB, and you can see what the SBSU's allotment was, goes towards the big items are transportation, professional learning, to support strategies, evidence-based strategies to support struggling learners, counseling services, adaptive physical education, speech services. The ones that we've highlighted in bold are big areas. And then IDEAB pre-K is focused on occupational therapy and paraprofessional support. So the last big grant that we received, which I talked about with you last time, was the ESSERS. And the one piece of information that you had all asked me about was related to ESSER 2, accessing ESSER money. Again, and again, I know our focus of our conversation was around pre-K or early ed. And so I reached out to the Agency of Education, and Josh Solier is my programming contact for all things ESSER. And I just posed the question if he could give me an update about ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding to support independent schools. And he asked that I share with you that there is no designated funding in ESSER 2 and 3 for independent schools, but he directed me to the American Rescue Plan Emergency Assistance to Non-Public Schools, ARP EAMS, and I'd be happy to send you the link that he forwarded to me, which is what the state of Vermont presented to the independent schools. And he also said that he would be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. If there are specific to the SBSU recovery plan, if there are any suggestions or any ideas about changes that you'd like to see happen to the SBSU recovery plan, because we'd have to make those changes in a public forum to then make changes to our plan, you can always go to that link on our website, which is right on our homepage for ESSER and recovery, and we always look forward to feedback. So my goal tonight was to give you that follow-up question that you had for me, and then to also add those other two really big grants to put on the table, just to give you some information and to see if you had any questions.
Okay, I have a question.
Absolutely.
So how much money is what independent schools have reached out to you, and how much money has actually gone to them for any of these particular grants, these 3 grants?
So right now in this moment, Ray, it's totally dependent on, so right now in this moment, we're waiting to see who wants to collaborate with us. And so then we meet with them to tell them more about what's involved in the process, and then they can agree to collaborate, but it would be on.
But Laura, you've had many of those meetings already.
For this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when they meet out, we have a consultation with them. Correct, yes, when they reach out, yes.
Yeah, so how much was spent under the current grants through independent schools or to independent schools?
Yeah, so if you're asking for like how much went towards equitable shares for this grant, I don't have that number, but that's a question I can get an answer to, absolutely.
Yeah, I would appreciate an idea of what which independent schools and what they participated in and how much money was involved.
Yeah, so one question I'll ask, Ray, is so I'll also reach out to see which information I can. I'm more than happy. I'm writing down your questions to get.
I would assume it's public money, so I was.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna. Yeah, I'll absolutely find out totally what I can share. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Why are we? I appreciate all the work that Laura does and the SU does, because that's a mind-numbing process.
Right.
But I am concerned.
I just wanted to let you know that I turned off. Sorry.
We're spending time talking about this. It's almost like rubbing our noses in it.
Yeah. Have a good night. Yep. Bye. Sorry, Matt. Matt,
Well, that's why I asked. I asked where the rubber hits the road for us. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, well, no, like our goal, we were asked by the SVSU board this year, and we do give an update every year, but what that grant team did is we put together a presentation with just to give the nuts and bolts of how it works and what it looks like in the context of the SVSU. So your questions are super. I'm writing down all of your questions, and I'm gonna go back, and because you're saying this is information that's helpful to our board. So I appreciate that, and I'm writing them all down.
So just to further flesh out what it means for say any group to come that has an idea for use of these funds, if they're not part of the SVSU system as part of the public school side of it, not the non-operating independent school side of it, what does that cooperation entail? Like if an independent school approaches you, and what do they have to do to be part of this program, and what is that cooperation like?
Yeah.
What is the sharing there?
Yeah, so so the first piece that happens is just it's the invitation that goes out, just to say we're inviting you to participate in this. You're an independent or private school in our attendance zone. And then the next step is to do that collaboration piece, and through the lens of title, which is the one that I'm most comfortable talking about with equitable share. So under title, it's called equitable shares. Then we schedule a meeting, and so Title I, Title II, and Title IV have allowable usage documents, which are on the Agency of Education website. Those are public documents and available.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing that I share with anybody that reaches out. And then we have a consultation about Title I's the hardest one because it's income based. So you have to demonstrate to me your methodology for identifying low income status. So for example, we do it through the lens of free and reduced lunch income, an income form every year with all of our families. And most of the schools that I've collaborated with, so I'll speak generally right now, they already have some form of methodology. And so that's a requirement of the state. And then they can say, and these are how many students that we serve that meet this criteria. And then I can work with Renee, and we can figure out, after we figure out how many schools want to participate, we can figure out what that allotment looks like based on student numbers.
Yeah.
So that's Title I. Title II and IV is different. It's just how many schools want to collaborate, and this is your allotment. And so what my job is in that initial meeting.
So there's not a restriction to serving children from lower income
For Title II and Title IV, it's based on their student. It's
okay.
And what they do is they provide us with, this is how many students from the SVSU attend. So it's broken out. And again, these are required tools that we have to have. These are the internal controls we're required to have and share with the state to make sure that we're following the process that they've outlined for us. And then during the school year, my job is to just reach out, and once the grants, once I put in the investments that have been requested, the state, every investment. So if an independent school says, hey, I think we have enough money for an interventionist, then I say, I write the grant investment to align with the guidelines on their behalf, and I submit it to the state of Vermont on their behalf. And if the state says, yes, this aligns, it looks good, then Renee and I'm just talking about title right now, can notify the school to say, as soon as the grant's approved, we say, yay, the grant is approved. And then we help to facilitate the next step of, is there a hiring piece that needs to be done? Is there a material? So for title, that's where Lisa Poplotsky comes into play. And we just keep in touch all year to check in, like, how are you doing? Is this working? Would you like, we also can do amendments during the year. Renee and I do a couple
Mhm.
amendments during the year. Because sometimes your idea that you had right now isn't what you really need later in the year. So we do amendments, as we do with all of our schools, as the year goes on, to make sure that everything's making sense. And we just do the best we can to spend the money.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit of consultation that goes on.
So I think it will become clearer what's actually being accomplished in this area, at least in terms of allotment to independent schools, if I actually see some numbers for each of these grants.
Yeah.
And I'll hold off on any other
Yeah.
questions till that, unless someone else has questions. Matthew has already indicated he's kind of
Well, I mean, can we cite any situations in the last 2 years where any of this money has come to our district?
well, I think we're waiting for that information from Laura. She's going to
I see.
gather it together. So
Yeah, no,
that's what I asked for.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, so equitable, and again, I think when we talked at the last meeting, when you had requested a presentation around ESSER,
Mhm.
it's funny that every federal grant seems to have a different language, but the theme is consistent, is that we're making sure that we're monitoring or making sure that the money is following the students to where they go, and that there's a piece of I like collaboration because it's kind of the universal word, collaboration. But again, title calls it equitable shares. IDEAB calls it proportional shares. And
Right.
then ESSER had a different term. And so now over the course of 2 meetings, we've given you a big picture of what that looks like. So I'm glad this has been helpful, and I've made note of your questions.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Jim? Yep,
what I wanted to address, Ray, is your email about
right.
student numbers. So the information that I have in front of me is that anyone who's applied should be able to get in, and we hope to determine that by the end of the week. I'm not confident of the total number of kindergarten students at Shasberry Elementary School. That was Ray's question. I'm trying to confirm that today. I know that I have 3 inter-school choice students that have applied. They applied by the March deadline who are on the waiting list. And then I believe there are 5 from North Bennington that have siblings already at the school. That should bring the total to 37 students. That's the number that I'm not, for 2 can.
Sorry. Are you there? I think we lost him.
Yeah, we lost him.
We lost the cell phone.
Hope he wasn't on Route 2 or something.
So what I hear from Jim there is that by the end of this week, they should have an idea about these children that are in limbo at the moment.
So I have a question. According to 3 parents, they've already received a letter from the supervisory union telling them that their child would not be able to attend kindergarten at Shasberry because it was full or they weren't in the lottery, et cetera, but they've already received that notification. I know that the principal at Shasberry notified these parents with a letter from the supervisory union. So I do know that, and I have seen that letter.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little confused. That's all.
Yeah, well, I looked up the policy on intra-school choice.
Right, I read that,
Shasberry.
Ray. I read
Yep.
that, and that doesn't.
And you have a process of submitting an application by March 1st, and then you wait until they've determined their availability by May 1st. And then, but in this case, the application date got pushed back to June 1st. And that's why these decisions are maybe a little later than you would expect. But, and plus they have a lot of, apparently they have a lot of interest. So,
So no, this still isn't making sense to me because these families have received a letter stating they would not
they would not.
be there was not a space for their child kindergarten at Shasberry. So
Okay.
I'm very confused because
Well, now, the thing is, Jim is talking about parents who already have a child there.
and these are what these this is who I'm talking about. I'm
Okay.
talking about these parents who have older children already in the school, and they were told their child would not have, their younger child would not have a space at kindergarten
Okay.
at Shasberry for.
Right. And the
reasons.
policy itself, which now I'm taking, this is the interest school.
Right, I
choice
read that.
program. I don't know. I would assume that the rules would be roughly similar for children from our district tuitioning into those schools, but I'm not sure of that. So I assume that it gives a preference to those children who have older sibling at school.
But these are the children, and these are from our
No,
district.
I'm not disputing that, Lori. I'm just
No,
saying, I'm just
I don't
pointing
know.
out the whole context here.
I know, it just doesn't make sense because they already received the letter.
Yeah, right.
So I'm not on
That letter says that means that there is no space available.
It would seem that the letter codifies and ends the discussion, right? That they were supposed to originally by May 1st have that decision, and it seems like maybe that's what they did.
I actually, I found Jim. He's on my phone. He can't get back in. So I've got him on speakerphone. And so Jim, I've got you on speakerphone. You want to try?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Thanks.
I don't know at what point I got cut off, but what we're showing for numbers right now, and these are unconfirmed, a total of 37 students projected for kindergarten at Shasberry, and that includes the 5 students from North Bennington who have siblings already there. So if the number is accurate at 37, then anyone that has applied will go in, because we have 2 kindergarten classes there. We shoot for a maximum of 20 under the education quality standards. So I talked about the principal today and the registrar and asked them to confirm those numbers so that we can notify all parents by the end of this week. I sit here tonight not confident of that number because that's the 3rd number I've gotten this week. But I have 3 SU students from other districts that have applied under the inter-school choice that we now have. And then there are 5 from North Bennington for a total of 8 students who are trying to get into Shasberry kindergarten. But I think there is room for them. But, I have a high degree of confidence that there is, but I can't sit here tonight and tell you that for sure, because I want to double check the numbers one more time.
All right. Well, there are 2 things here. I appreciate that end of the week idea. Hopefully that happens. But and the confidence you have, but Lori's pointing out to me that some of these parents who have older siblings at Shasberry got letters saying there was no room. Is that a false letter? Is that to be disregarded?
It wasn't a letter from us. I think it went out from the principal. So I'm still trying to track that down. So I would Lori, tell anyone who got that letter to hold on, because the information I received today is we should be able to accept everyone and still have a little wiggle room for if anybody moves into Shasberry over the summer. So.
Okay, well, that's the best I think I can get at the moment.
Yeah, because at one point it looked earlier today. It looked like the numbers were 37 without the 5 from North Bennington, which would put it to 42.
Okay.
But by 3:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30 this afternoon, it looked like that was the wrong number. But the registrar had already gone home for the day, so I couldn't double check it. 2 different lists working, and that's always a problem. But we should be okay.
Okay, so apparently that was a mistake on the registrar's form, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know
what she
where
was
that
talking about.
originated from, but yeah.
All right, so I'd appreciate follow-up response if you can get, I don't know whether it should go to me or to Lori,
Well,
but
I'll let you know what happens so that, but we'll be
okay.
notifying these families. I want it done this week. But,
I
I'll
I
let
do
you, since
appreciate
you're
that
involved in
because,
the email, I'd make sure you know too.
yeah, I appreciate that because, these families get anxious at this time of the year about these
Understandably, yeah.
situations.
Any
I
any
appreciate your
chance that
response.
any chance that going forward, we might hope or require that this process happen about 2 or 3 months earlier?
Well,
don't know if
inter-school
that's possible.
choice applications go to March 1st. And then those decisions are made by April 1st. So it would never be before April that we would be able to tell anybody from North Bennington whether there were openings for them. So it.
Well,
No.
that,
I think April is fine.
that's better than May 15th or
Yeah.
whatever we're looking at. That impacts our school too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I unless does Lori, do you want to have anything else to say about it or?
No, I better not. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing something by the end of the week then. I appreciate your effort to untangle this, Jim. And thanks for that report. So anything else to say from the superintendent's office here?
I would just like to ask kind of a history of when that district decided to do this.
When the merger happened, when the consolidated districts merged, the Shasbury tuition agreement with North Bennington was not part of the, so that's never
Right.
been adopted. So
I see.
there was some misunderstanding that preference was given to North Bennington, and it was prior to the merger of the school district, and then the district voted to have inter-school choice.
Right.
Choice.
Was that part of the original ballot item that if passed and the formation of that district, that was at that time, that was an automatic part of it? Or I thought that was delayed for.
I think that was a policy
They voted
decision.
separately after the district was merged, and one of the first things that the committee, the school board wanted was school choice among all the.
Yeah.
the other,
This looks like a school choice policy put together by the board, and that
it
you've
was
just
by the
confirmed
board,
it.
not-
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the articles of agreement that was forced upon them by the state.
Right.
Great. Yep. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. So now I guess we're up to the chair's report. This is going to be brief. Well, part of it's going to be brief. Facility work for end of the year and summer of 2022. Terrence Mahar at the village school has gotten 2 bids on the fire alarm system, and they're so disparate in what they cover and the costs that he's looking for a 3rd bid because it seems like there's confusion. Another item that we have been talking about is doing a repair on the southeast roof drain that drains down through the library before we have a similar problem to what we had in 5th grade several years ago, where that pipe broke and we had leakage through the ceiling. And Hayden did the plumbing repair, and we had to do a repair on the ceiling, but Terrence has been unable so far to get Hayden to give him a price and to commit to a date. But he'll continue doing, he'll continue doing that. And kind of the third thing that's really on our agenda for the summer is to deal with making sure that we avoid further water intrusions on the west wall in the oldest part of the building, where those window wells are. And that's up to the facility committee to put together something with an excavator, talk to an excavator about that. And that as part of that, there would also be a component that deals with the puddling that occurs on the asphalt sidewalk just in front of the portico, which unfortunately holds water at the side of the building instead of allowing it to divert to the drop inlet 15 feet away. But we haven't got that done, so that stands in our to-do list. I had a discussion of the legislative actions, but the legislature is nearly complete, and I don't know the final status of some of these things. Plus, I was looking at the weighting study, and my goodness, there's a lot of detail there. So I'm not ready to talk about that, but Kim happened to send me an email. Maybe I think she sent it to the rest of you about the religious school tuition payments that referred, an article in Vermont Digger that discussed those and the particular issues that Grace Christian presented at the first when they had a website that offered a very a position that clearly violated Vermont's equity positions on gender and some other things. Because we were in a situation where the state was basically not supporting much resistance to this at the time. You had to make up your own mind, and you could be involved in a lawsuit easily if you didn't accept the protestations of the school about what they taught and how they taught it. We paid for 2 students for a partial year at Grace last year, but within that article, there was a reference to new state rules promulgated by I assume they've been adopted by the State Board of Education. I'm not sure. I guess they are if they're being referred to as rules and not draft rules. And one of the things that is in them is that all independent schools to receive public tuition have to be able to provide in some way special education. And I think actually Grace and Sacred Heart may be able to meet that requirement to some extent, because I know that would have to be investigated. So I'm not sure if that excludes them, but I'm not sure about Southshire and Highland Hall. And I think next month we should have a report from Dina Atwood, if we can, about those particular rules and how they apply to our particular situation, because that would make a large difference in options for our students and whether those students have a position at those schools that are continuing at those schools, that is, or choose to continue at those schools. And I think that needs to be clarified. And I may just be misreading it, reading it incorrectly, but I think Dina would be able to tell us better. Is that possible? Is Jim still on here? Laura,
Yeah,
you're
I'm here.
there. Yep.
Jim's here too. Jim's here too. We're both
Okay.
here.
So I think
We
next
asked-
month, I've asked, so I hope you'll be able to ask Dina to make a report on that next month. Or
Ray,
next month's meeting.
do you have the document that you're referencing? Can you?
I can send it to you. Yes,
Thank
once
you.
once
Yeah,
I'm
send it to us. We'll have Dina review it and get an answer back
Right.
from her.
Yep, I will do that. Thank you. And I guess that's, I don't have any other business. So does anybody else want to have something to say?
I just wanted to say that it just seemed, reading that article, how absurd it was that the school had a policy on their website, and that was egregious, really. And then by simply removing it from the website, they were abolished of any connection to it.
Yes.
Absolved. And then the whoever it was said, no, they're all right. They're not violating anything.
I think that was the Department of Children and Families.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
And then the current management, there was a different head of school mentioned there. The current head of school is actually mentioned in the article as not the head of school, but a different position.
Yeah.
And they were arguing that their position is a Christian position of
love and acceptance.
Love and acceptance. So,
except with regard to the policy that was posted and the things that the parents have to sign in
Right.
order to have their children there.
And that the claim was that they signed those as an indication that they understand the school's position, but the school does not enforce a policy that such as it formally had published on its website.
Yeah. All right,
So I think that's an interesting discussion. I think it's something that maybe would be interesting next month when we have a report from Dina about the application of those rules to certain of the schools that our children tuition to. You know, there's no question with respect to the public schools that are tuition to, Shaftesbury, Molly Stark, and Benell. But and there's no question at the village school because their policies are they would be similar to the VSBA model policies and meet all the requirements of the state. But the village school offers special education services and is certified in all categories. I know that Highland Hall and South Shore are not, and I don't know if they can meet this requirement of that appears in these new rules from the State Board of Education. Although they don't start, well, they don't start until this next school year. But certain rules were implemented immediately. So that's what we need to know, because I think it does affect us quite substantially.
I think it is a problem that those schools don't provide the special ed services that they're trying to get, but it seems like the whole discussion pivoted onto this to to cast our attention elsewhere regarding human rights issues, other human rights issues that that were being discussed prior and nobody wanted to touch.
Right.
Seems like everybody can touch the special ed thing. I guess that's, you know,
Well-
that's acceptable material, but the state really dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah. Is Jim still there, Laura?
Yes, yep.
So my last impression was that the idea, the legislation that was dealing with setting out a state policy for independent schools that were religious schools, approved independent schools that were religious schools, that they had to prove that they weren't expending public funds for religious education or religious indoctrination. But my impression was that that didn't get out of the Senate Education Committee, that they didn't pass it forward. Is that correct, or am I incorrect about that?
I believe you're correct. I think this is something that people are afraid to touch.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yep. So maybe the rules are sort of, we'll find another way.
Yeah, I'll touch it with a lawsuit against our district
Right.
for paying money.
You know, you've talked about that before, like, you know, who wants to be the first to go ahead, then, you know, sue us, because that was, Ray was absolutely right. That was the, you know,
Well, that's the attitude of the state, yes.
they were gonna sue anybody who
Yep.
withheld money, but
Right, and the attitude of the people who were pushing that for this thing to happen, that religious schools were eligible for public tuition. Their attitude was definitely to sue you.
Right.
And
Game on.
and you know, we're a district that doesn't have the money to take on a suit like that. So
No, but an individual could.
yep,
and that, I believe, was advice Dean had given before.
yep. But so yeah, I guess that's two different items that I would appreciate Dina talking to, but in particular to start with the new rules that the state Board of Ed promulgated for
Send
independent
Laura and I
schools.
the document you have, that'll be a good reminder for us.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
We'll meet
I'll
with
send it
Dina
to you.
later this week, so I'll be happy to bring it up to her.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. So unless there's unless someone wants to chip in another,
Best not.
I don't have further, so I'll call the meeting adjourned.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yep. I'll accept that motion. And Kiernan, you accept that?
We might have lost him.
Yeah, well, he's yeah, maybe not, maybe so.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You accept
accept
adjournment? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Laura.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
good night.
Good night.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.